Is there another question? Someone good?
Just going, like, obviously, a lot of the time 2000 AD gets discussed in relation to American comics, because obviously it's the home of, it's where Alan Moore and Brian Bolland, etc. got their break. But is there not an extent to which that's almost like a red herring? So, because it's like people think it is almost like they think that because it had Alan Moore or Grant Morrison or whoever, they think it's going to be like a British take on American comics. Like, it's never really, like, do like Americans not think, like, kind of project like their ideas of what comics are like on 2000 AD, and then they don't really understand its own kind of identity in a way.
So you feel maybe it's like the problem is, if you read British comics, has a British identity, and it should have a British identity.
Because people have gone over to America, they think it's going to be like almost like an American.
Yeah, I think what happened in the early days was, like, you know, people like Brian Bolland and Dave Gibbons. Mick McMahon was an exception to the rule because he was just Mick McMahon. He did what Mick McMahon did and did it brilliantly. And Dave Gibbons and Brian Bolland were influenced by American comics and DC comics in particular. So you had that cross-fertilisation. So if you looked at most juvenile comics of that particular period, they had a particular style, which was very recognisably British. The thing about 2000 AD, it brought in American sensibilities, which had those extreme close-ups. And it was a different visual language, which was really exciting at that particular time. Never mind the fact they were just damn fine artists as well. So the identity was like a bit crossing over, but it was very European influence as well, because we had lots of European artists work for 2000 in those days, and some wonderful artists, but you could see the European influence as opposed to the British talent who were doing very American style but British influenced art. So
there are very, very clear differences in comics cultures in different countries. I mean, I can read French, and I read some French comics, but I don't get them in the same way that I can get 2000 AD or American stuff. I didn't grow up with it. It's a different culture for me. It's slightly, it's just not quite there. And my wife, who's French, she'll read French comics, and she loves French comics, and she can't read 2000 AD. She looks at it and just like horror. It's just this ghastly screaming thing to her, and this doesn't work. She can't get it. And I talk to editors. I mean, I used to go to French conventions with my portfolio, and they go, "Ah, yes, your work is very American." And it's like, that's the end of the conversation. So I take it over to DC Comics or Marvel, and they say, "Yeah, your stuff's very European." And that's the end of that. And it's like, "Yeah, I'm British. We live in this sort of between the two stools. We assimilate from both sides. We put it together. We make our own thing." And unfortunately, not everybody gets it. And the superhero audience in America, the adolescent boys or the mature men now who read it, they're very conservative. This is a very conservative market. You have to accept that, and it's expanding slowly now through various cultural reasons. But it is not easy to crack it because they're just not interested. They would rather stick with their thing. They're doing it because they like that thing, not because they're interested in comics or science fiction or people shooting each other. It's because they like that stuff. Spider-Man, they want Spider-Man. They don't care who writes and draws it. They just like Spider-Man.
Any other?
If you could pick one story from the past 30 odd years, which would it be?
Well, for me, it would actually be one I was involved in. It was only because it was such a brilliant story that spawned the series America, which is Letter from the Democrat. And I did that, and I think John Wagner actually wrote it by himself rather than with Alan Grant. And he felt very personal about it, and that for me is my personal favourite story in 2000 AD. Not necessarily just because of my association, but it's had one of the best lines that's like I think Dredd has ever said, which is once he's killed the wife of this young skinny bloke who ends up raising his child by himself. He sort of like said to this poor widowed gentleman, you know, let that be a lesson to you, you know, democracy is not for the people. You know, just says everything. Just classic. What? That's right, yes, it rolled into that series. The comic deal did wonderfully well.
Still thinking, is anybody else coming?
I do. I mean, absolute fond memories of something like the Cursed Earth Saga. Just because it was, even though 2000 AD had the strength to do these one-off stories, suddenly to get something that just went on and on and on, and I just love the concept that it's not like today where, if you're going to do a big story, especially in American comics, the first thing you say is like, this is a maxi series of 12 issues or whatever. You project the length of the story so you know when it's going to end. And I love the idea that something like the Cursed Earth Saga or the Judge Child were just these huge sagas, and you hadn't a clue this could go on for 10 issues, this could go on for 30 issues. There was no end, and it ended when it ended. Which was an amazing sort of excitement for me. I just loved the idea of just this huge story just going on and on and on and on. And again, I think that was fairly unique in British comics again, because everyone, all the other British comics back in the 70s were these sort of standalone, one issue, perhaps 2 issue, sort of end standalone stories, which had an end at the in the same issue, and to have these things which end at part 20, was amazing.
I guess for me it would be one of the classic Future Shocks, because I love all the big stories and big series, but I couldn't pick just one. But the Future Shocks, I think, if I'm allowed to take them as a whole, actually, is that cheating? It probably is. Hell with it. We'll just there's out of nowhere picking there's a one-page Peter Milligan one, which has stuck with me, which was like. It's one single page and it's got 2 twists in it. It's the guy on the barren planet going, "Oh, I'm stuck in a barren planet. I'm stuck in an alien planet with no way home and no way to contact anybody. Oh, that's terrible." You'd think, and then it pans out and he's in this delicious paradise covered in like naked women and fruit. And then it kind of twists again and reveals that he's just eating this hallucinogenic medicine to keep him sane for the rest of his life in this hellhole. And that's one page with like
2 twists.
2 twists.
2 twists on a page.
And it's Pete Milligan, so it's brilliantly written. Every word is in place. And if you're going to put a gun to my head and force me to pick something, I think that sort of sums up a lot of the ethos of 2008, and one of the many things that I really love about it. So I'll pick that.
I'm a great fan of the kind of Pat Mills-verse, which is basically Pat Mills has managed to done lots and lots of stories for 2000. Basically, they all kind of eventually merge into the same continuum. So I grew up reading the Robusters, which morphed into ABC Warriors, which kind of went into Nemesis, and there's all these stuff that all came together. And this great long look at. If you look at this massive sort of continuum, it's all about prejudice and intolerance and these robots struggling to be respected in society that despise them. It was tremendously powerful. I mean, he's very passionate, very motivated writer, Pat Mills, and he put all this so much kind of like righteous fury into it. At the same time, it's a cracking action story. It's the best robot story ever written, and I love that stuff. I've loved looking at it today. I mean, I look at that Mike McMahon, Rojas and Hammerstein stuff with the BBC Warriors artwork. It's just like it's the high watermark.
It's more difficult for me because I've been around a lot longer than these guys. I used to like Carlos Esquera's Strontium Dog. I used to like that. I don't know what the story was called, I just used to like it. Just to look at pictures.
Is that the wrap-up song? Yep. Well, thank you all very much for coming and listening to us all blather. You guys. Yes.
Don't embarrass yourself again.
Thank you to all those people whose names I've forgotten.